We are live, and we're live on LinkedIn and Facebook, or indeed you may be watching this back on one of the podcast channels or on YouTube. And so thank you if you are giving us some of your attention. It is always something that we appreciate very much. And it's our intention to make sure that we give you some really powerful knowledge from people with great wisdom. So this is called BIP Chat, which BIP stands for Business is Personal, which you'll see if you're watching this actually on watching the screen. You'll see that Business is Personal is titled my book, but it is also the brand behind our community, our Business is Personal community called BIP 100. And that stands for Business Personal, but 100 means that we'll never have more than 100 people in the community. Thomas and I believe so deeply in the power of community as opposed to joining a network. And I could run a whole show here on that, so I don't want to get carried away with it. But one of the key things is about a community is having deep conversations and also deeply getting to know the people within the community. And it's Thomas's and my responsibility before we welcome a new BIPper into our community to make sure that they're going to add value to others, they have strong values, and their expertise is something that we're really proud to sit alongside. Today, we're going to be talking about branding. And branding is something that whether you are a solopreneur, whether you are a business leader, whether you are starting a new company, whether you are creating a new product, it is something that is so essential to our success. And we all know that since the advent of social media, without a brand that has clarity and something catchy about it and really signifies the quality of you and your product, you're going to trip over. I have experienced Gareth Martindale, who is our expert and BIPper, a number of times. Actually, it was quite incredible when Gareth helped me to create some of the icons and branding around my book, Business is Personal. And it was a huge motivator for me when these icons were created, which were very important for me as chapter headings. And they've ended up being embedded in so many speeches I deliver and all sorts of things. Now that is just touching the surface really of what Gareth can do. So Gareth runs Sherbet Lemon, and it is a creative design agency. And so as a graphic designer and a brand consultant and an agency owner, he's been doing this for over 15 years. It's been a real pleasure to watch many people that we know really love Gareth's work and see how his business has expanded over the years and see the amazing projects that he works on. So today we're going to be exploring innovative branding strategies, and that could be anything from how we're using AI into how to create powerful brand presence on social media. So Gareth, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. We're very excited about this. I think it's so topical that we are going to be talking about AI, and it's interesting how AI touches everything. So I think that's going to be very interesting to start on that, but also around social media as well and some of the other projects you do. Do you want to just fill in any little bit more about Sherbet Lemon and yourself before we really dive in here?
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. This is great and not at all scary. So I run Sherbet Lemon. Sherbet Lemon is a creative agency that I set up about 13 years ago, originally as a freelance designer when I first met you. And then over the past several years, the clients it's got a little bit larger, the project's got a little bit bigger, and I started working with more sort of help with creative partners, other freelancers, and then we've sort of grown quite organically into a creative agency. So we're based in the UK, we're based in Blackpool, sunny Blackpool, and we've recently set up a presence in Dubai as well, which is very...
From Blackpool to Dubai.
Yeah, they've both got a wheel. They've both got a big spinning wheel, so it's pretty much the same. And a beach.
That's true. Goodness me, what a connection! Blackpool and Dubai, a wheel and a beach.
I know. That's all you need.
It's been very exciting to see you expanding in that way. It's been quite phenomenal, actually, to see that happening. And I understand that that's with a client that's expanded you out there. Is that right?
Absolutely. So it first came about where we had we were having more and more clients looking to sort of spread their wings and open a presence out in Dubai, various reasons. So we helped them with the initial expansion of their business. We looked at their branding, their marketing materials, and their websites, and tailored it more for a Dubai market with great success. So that was fantastic. We then had another client who again wanted to do the same, so we helped them. And as this was happening, we thought, well, it's working for them. Let's try it for us. So we've expanded. So we've been able to help our clients here and our clients that are moved over there to sort of expand and build a client base out in Dubai. So very exciting times.
No.
And Gareth, where is the pull and the draw of Dubai coming from, both for your clients and yourself? What's sucking you in?
So initially, my interest came through Web3 technology, blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, things like that. And it just seems like a hub of innovation, constantly building, really excited about doing new things. So personally, that's a draw for us. And then through that, we've gained several Web3 companies that wanted to work with us on their branding, on their marketing, and on their promotion. So that was the original draw. Another being that we have clients that are going out there, and we wanted to be able to be the boots on the ground for them while they were there. So if they need help, then they can just speak to one of the designers out there, and we've got a connection both in the UK and out in Dubai for them.
No, well, absolutely wonderful. So in terms of getting to the point where you have a fully fledged agency, you've been on a journey, I'm sure, like all of us business owners, to get to this point where you started to see the scale. You started off way back, graphic design was your key area, yeah?
Yeah, so from the age of about 12, I'd always wanted to be a graphic designer. So my mum was an art teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I always grew up wanting to be an artist. And then one of in the art lesson, one of our art teachers was sick. So we had a substitute teacher who was a graphic designer, and he brought in his portfolio, a proper old school, big A1 portfolio, and started laying out the work. And my mind was blown. I had no idea that anything like this could even be created. So he was pulling out large sheets of sort of printed video game covers and movie covers that always created on large scale and then shrunk. So after that was it. I was sold.
What year was that, Gareth?
When I was 12.
Yeah.
So hang on a moment. Let's do some mental maths. I'm 40 this year. So we need to work back from that. Some point in the 90s.
So you were born 80s.
So that was still in the 90s.
Yeah.
95. Now don't look, cover the grey hair, darling. So isn't that interesting though? Because I know we can't get onto the subject of education, but it just shows how you can inspire a student with the application of art in a way that they can relate to it. I love that. What a great person. These are like 5 people you meet in heaven. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but that man probably doesn't really realize that one day had such an impact, and is now feeding you and your family and creating incredible brands for people.
He most certainly would have not had a clue.
Isn't that amazing?
He rocked up just to fill in a space.
That makes my heart explode. It's absolutely lovely.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So when you look back in 95, and you think of how relatively simple all our lives were then to now, and now when somebody comes to you and say they want to build a brand, the conversation must be so wide.
It is. It really is. And I think because of the access to knowledge, access to software, to programs and things that can make processes a lot easier than they used to be back in '95. I think it's really important to go back to the original concept, the original idea, because that's the thing that never changes. So you can have a piece of new shiny technology and people want to add a filter on and make it glow. But what's the core idea? That's where it starts. And then everything else that comes from that is just part of the journey, part of the process.
Yeah.
So we were always taught throughout like college and unis to really focus in on what's the concept, what's the idea. Don't think about the software. There wasn't a huge amount of software when I first started, or if it was basic. Start on pen and paper and then just work outwards from that.
And when you say the idea, Gareth, do you mean the client's idea, the product idea, or your own idea of your interpretation of their concept? It can
be anything. So we all, regardless of the project, we always start with the concept and the why are we doing this? What purpose are we trying to solve? So whether it's building a brand, and somebody's come to us with an idea, or they've got a product or a website, it's like, why are we doing this? Who are we speaking to? And what are we trying to achieve through this? So it's very tempting to go, oh, I'm gonna release this product out into the wild without doing any research or without doing much thinking about it. But it really needs to focus on those those questions of why we're doing this in the first place.
So something I'm itching to talk about here is, because I'm just right on the edge of this AI thing. I'm the classic person that didn't really think about AI until ChatGPT came along. And obviously it's been around for 7+ years, hasn't it? Where does AI come into branding?
So, I mean, AI, although it seems relatively new, it's been working away in the background for years. I mean, you sort of look at Netflix uses AI for its algorithms and TikTok and things like that. So it's always been there. I think because it's just come out like this big splash. I don't think anyone was really expecting it to come out so quickly and be so powerful and so accurate. I think that was a big shock for people. So, I mean, the way that we started to utilize it was internally, and those sort of tasks that we perhaps would take us a long time. We're creatives, so tasks and processes and things, we always sort of try and push them to the side. So being able to evolve.
You hate processes, is what you're saying, Gareth.
You know this. It has its place. It definitely has a place.
But does AI have a role in branding, like social media or websites, or is it purely for automating processes to make work faster for clients?
Well, for us and the way that we use it, I mean, I certainly see it certainly has its place in social media and for clients as well. The way we use it. So, for instance, we would use software like Midjourney, which is
Midjourney. And what does it do?
So that's AI that creates images. So, where in the past we would say to a client, "Okay, we've got an idea for a car, a campaign to sell your car," and we would artboard things up, and we would try and find examples of the type of thing we were after. And then we would present that. What we're able to do now is put together a series of images and sequences that the AI has generated that we can then storyboard up and give the client a clearer view of what we're trying to achieve. So it helps us communicate our ideas a lot easier. So that's.
Do you pay Midjourney a subscription?
Yes. So
and what you feed in pictures, or you feed in words, and it creates campaigns?
all we do is we create, we come up with a prompt. So a description of what we're trying to achieve. Now, this prompt can be something as simple as a horse jumping over a car, and then you press enter and you just hope that something good comes out of it. Whereas what we've started to do is to go, right, okay, well, let's think about the setting a bit more. So we'll be quite scripted in the outline of the setting, what the lighting is going to be like, maybe even what camera is going to be shot on. So we put all that in, and then
You type all that in, right?
We type all of that in, and we create a sequence of images that we can then present to the client. But we only use it for concepts. We don't use it as a final piece of work. I mean, it's too early to. I mean, from our side, we wouldn't want to sort of give that to a client and say, you know, that's a final piece of work. We would use it as concept and then have an illustrator or animator create a bespoke version that they can hand over, and then the client owns complete copyright to that.
And how much time does that save?
A huge amount of time. I mean,
days, weeks?
Days. Certainly days, depending on the project and the scale of the project. It can, you know, in some instances could save weeks, especially if you're trying to communicate an idea that's quite detailed. There's a big budget behind it, and you need to make sure you get this right. You know, you can spend hours just working up these boards, and then take one look at them and go, no, that's not for us.
Can you imagine, Thomas, when you worked with Pete? So Thomas had a job in an agency when he left college. Can you imagine Pete, who's an amazing man, as a creative director? He's unfortunately not on this earth anymore, but can you imagine if he'd had that concept? Because what you're describing there is so time consuming, and you're desperate to deliver to your client what they want in a given time. And so you've just really accelerated the process for them. It's quite incredible.
Absolutely.
It is interesting. So you're going from graphic designer to prompt engineer.
It does. It very much feels like that, yes.
Because it's all based on your ability to ask the AI to create this car jumping over this horse with this background. So it's based on your ability to write good commands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does it make you any more creative, or is it just mundane for you because you're basically asking the computer says no kind of questions?
Do you know what? If somebody would have told me 3 years ago that I'll be writing commands into a chat and then images will be created and I was going to love it, I'd say they were absolutely mad. There's no way on earth. But you start to think a certain way and start to enjoy. Well, actually, whereas if I was working in Photoshop or Premiere and I wanted to add this effect in, you can do exactly the same thing, but you're just typing it out. It reminds me of when I first started working in agencies, and there was old school designers there that used to set out large format printing, and they had all the typesets, and they were putting in all these letters, you know, creating a page of text with these little metal letters that were going to be then printed. And then a new set of designers came in straight out of college and were like, no, you just use this piece of software and you can type all the text out on screen, and you can drop an image in. And if you don't like that image, you can take it away and put another image in.
Oh, so you're saying it's the same as that, really?
That's what it feels like.
But does it make you more creative because the machine creates these images? And does it make the client more creative because they can instantly say, oh, I don't like that, I do like that. Oh, I never thought of that. Is it creating more human output, or is it just a big typewriter drawing pictures? I would have said, prior to my experience with things like Midjourney,
that it would have zapped the creative bit out of the process. Whereas in fact, I think it forces you to think more about what you're wanting to achieve. So quite often in a process, things like happy accidents happen where you'll try and source an image for a project, and you'll find a stock image and say to the client, look, this is what it's going to look like, but it will look slightly different. And you'll put it in, and then before you know it, you use that as your shoot list, and you go, right, okay, that's the image I'm going to try and replicate. Whereas sort of the world's your oyster with this. You can really go all out. And then when you put in your command, you get, I think it's 4 different versions that it just spews out at you. So it's pretty cool, and I geek out about it.
This constant, fortunately, you sort of love the technology and the progression that you're seeing. It must be constant learning. So when you're looking at social media, which, you know, seems so incredible to Thomas and I now, that's so established now, isn't it? You know, I remember, you know, when it all took off back in sort of 2004, 2005, seems very established now. Do you find companies still getting very excited about social media, questioning about it? I mean, I assume a lot of knowledge now, but is it with everybody? But is it still quite new to a lot of people about how to navigate their branding on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we work with a variety of clients in various sectors, and some really got, you know, locked onto social media and felt it was a perfect way to distribute their brand to the masses, and got really excited. New technologies, you know, a new platform comes out, you know, great, let's try that. And then there's some companies that maybe are even still a little bit more reluctant to try certain platforms because, you know, for whatever reason, whether they feel, or maybe the people using those apps aren't the right demographic, or maybe they still think social media is a little bit of a fad and would prefer to go old school marketing, old school PR. But there's still a lot of excitement with that, and I think as more and more people are brought up with that technology and brought up with social media as just part of their everyday lives, the more sort of accepted it becomes within a brand. And, you know, utilizing different platforms for different demographics and for different you know, presenting themselves one way on say TikTok, and then slightly different on LinkedIn. You know, the core values of the brand won't change, but the way that they present themselves to those different audiences will change.
So if you were doing a TikTok for someone, doing that campaign with them, what would that involve, for example? Is that the sort of, how do you, because I see TikTok. I see TikTok as, you know, people doing things, you know, videos all the time. How do you do that as a branding agency?
So with something like TikTok, I had to say it right then. With TikTok is, again, who you're trying to communicate to, and you look at, well, actually the age range that would, you know, be viewing TikTok will be here. And the attention span on those things especially is really short. I mean, I know they booked the length of a video you can have on, but still you need to get someone straight away. So we look at things like messaging. What are we trying to achieve? It all goes back to the concept of what are we trying to do by having this. So we may look at, well, actually, we want them to see us and then view a long format video elsewhere.
Right.
So you put the best, you know, the snippets to sort of put together a nice little edit with a call to action or just something to gain interest to take them elsewhere. It may just be about a product. So if it's a product placement, for instance, well, maybe we sort of leverage an influencer that's already got a following, and it would be a good way for them to sort of share your product. So we always go with what are we trying to achieve before we look at what we actually present.
Wow. And the website, is that still as important?
That's a good question.
I personally feel so, yes.
You do?
I mean, some may argue no, and I've seen brands sort of, grow with very little on the site. It could just be a landing page. But we always we still see that the website as being a sort of a hub of information, again, depending on the client, but somewhere where people can still have a deep dive. I mean, we don't want to assume that everyone will just view the brand through social media. We want to be able to sort of tick all the boxes to make sure it's a brand across all platforms. Yeah. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, any call to action on a piece of social media content will always bring them to the site anyway, further information.
And Gareth, do you have to plan everything from the baby steps of the original idea, what they're trying to achieve, the website, the social media, the email, the channels they use? Do you have to plan the whole thing?
If a client wants us to, yes.
And so, is that incredibly complicated now because of all of these different channels and platforms?
It's yes and no. I mean, going back to processes and formulas, although I joke around that I don't like them, we have to use them for things like that, because otherwise it would just be a crazy room of creatives with crayons. But with
AI crayons, obviously.
With AI crayons, yeah. Just a load of us in Mid-Journey not talking to each other. Yeah, so we plan out from a brand strategy, social media strategy, and then carry that through. So we're aware of certain demographics for the social media. We tend to work in a macro content, micro content way of working when putting together social media, so that whether it's filming or animating a large piece of content, so full length, and then break that down into digestible pieces of content that then can be pushed out. So that may be a 15-minute video on YouTube, but then within that, we think, right, well, that selection from the video could be broken down for, let's say, TikTok, or that selection's a bit more formal, a bit more about the business, that can be put on LinkedIn. So although it seems quite grand scale, the process is quite a simple one to follow, but again, time consuming. So anything we can utilize and leverage to make those processes smoother, we always look into.
As an agency, the specialisms now, so you must have to have so many different people involved in that whole process with their individual specialisms, from video editing to camera to the different social media areas. I mean, it's an incredible amount of specialisms. Yes.
So, and we've learned this over the years. So as a freelancer, I'd probably say it was sort of logo and branding. It was always the thing that I sort of focus on as a creative and branding consulting. But I could build a website. I could, I can design certain things. So as a freelancer, it's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And then very quickly realized, no, that's not the way to do it. So as we've grown, we sort of know our place. We're a full service agency, and strategy certainly where a big part of our focus is, and we can do that internally. But certain things will come along, so we'll need 3D animation or we'll need 2D. So we'll work with creative partners, creative allies that can help us fulfill those specialisms, because we don't want to sort of hold back from a project and say, well, it'll be safer if we just do that. You know, say we had 3D animators, like, well, let's just do 3D animations. You know, that's not necessarily going to fulfill the purpose. So we sort of open up our scope, and whatever's needed for the job, we work with our creative friends to help.
And how one of the things that gives me great sympathy for how hard this world is for you, this sector, is clients' expectation of ROI and what part they play in whether they get a return for all this investment. And you know, we're always thinking of, okay, brand, and then there's how do you market that brand, and then there's how do you convert that brand through selling. And you know, Thomas and I have been through a whole journey of where are our strengths on that, and we're quite strong on building personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then when it comes to somebody coming to us, then we're very good at qualifying a client and working out whether or not we can add value and closing them. The middle bit in there. So for a company to be good at all of that, you know, and so you're doing the brand bit. They're also expecting you to be doing the marketing bit to deliver the leads.
So in terms of marketing, we provide the collateral for marketing, but don't do the pushing out of marketing. So we're not a marketing and PR agency. Yeah. We're not a social media agency. We would then pass that on. Funnily enough, I had this conversation with a colleague today, where you'll spend, speaking of ROIs, you'll spend time building this brand strategy and spending lots of time getting it in place, sometimes up to 100, 200 pages or what have you of this document, all the assets, hand it over, and then they sort of expect, you know, well, you know, we're the sales, but it needs to be implemented in the right way. So, but again, over the years, we've been, you know, we've fallen into that trap. So we're trying to be better at sort of communicating ourselves. But yes, once this part's done, then this is what you need to do with it, or this is who you need to speak to push it out. But it's still, you will still get clients going, okay, so I've got a lovely new logo, so what's that going to get me? You know, about constantly educating.
So take us through the baby steps, Gareth. What questions, somebody's listening in now to this interview, what questions should they be asking themselves if they're thinking about building a brand or a campaign to build some new channels to market? What should they be saying, asking themselves, or writing down? What kind of questions?
I think it would be really looking at why you're doing it in the first place. What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And then we would say when building a brand, it's from the inside out. So start with what the values are of the brand. You know, who if this brand was a person, who would it be? What would their tone of voice be? And really get that nailed down. So once you've started with that, and once you're in a place where you know the tone of voice, the brand's values, then things start to flow a little bit easier. If you start off thinking, right, I need a logo, I need a website, I need video, I need social media, it's overwhelming and you'll burn yourself out. But if you focus on the brand, the core values, what you want to do, everything else will start to fall in line. And then you can start thinking about, well, if this is what we sound like, this is how the brand should look. So the logo will look a certain way, certain color palettes. If we talk a certain way, then, you know, maybe you talk a bit more youthful, or the products directed to a younger audience. Then you look at where that audience sort of lives socially. So TikTok, Instagram, and then it's sort of, again, it's going back to processes. I do like.
So the strategy piece is what you're trying to achieve, the values you want to represent, the tone of voice, and then you look at all the mechanics in terms of websites, channels, social media, whether or not you need AI or not.
Absolutely.
So the next question people are going to ask is how long does all of that take? The strategy piece, design piece, and then rolling out all these different mechanics piece. Is that 3 months, 6 months?
So actually, yeah, I mean, on average, sort of 2 to 3 months to get that initial stage off the ground. And I mean, you can obviously do it. You can do it quicker. You can take it longer. It's but yeah, I'd say comfortably. And then once you've got your brand strategy in place, you can then look at your marketing and social media strategy. But again, that's something that will start to sort of reveal itself as you're working through the brand strategy. Once you've got that solid, you start to know then, oh, I've got an idea of what the website could look like, or what the social media channels could look like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 3 to 6 months to get up and away.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's nice on the chat, because people are watching it live. We've got Carolyn Boddington, who is a marketing strategist, and she says, with my CMO hat on, I see the greatest benefits of working with Gareth is to bring my strategy to life using the various channels and mediums available to us. So something coming across here, thank you, Carolyn, about, this time spent with a client on the strategy. You must be using coaching techniques and everything to really get them, because I've been in that position where I'm thinking, I just want a brand, please, and then you haven't really visualized it yourself or what the strategy is.
Yeah, there was a guy that I used to work with, and he used to start his presentations. So I always used to go on after him. He used to start his presentations with a quote. I think it was from Abraham Lincoln, that said, "If I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 6 hours sharpening my axe," which sums it up. Spend time on that strategy, make sure you know what you're doing, live by that strategy, and everything else can then follow it.
It must be incredible, actually, because when a CEO or somebody comes to you to do this, the impact of that time when they're working on the business with you must have huge impact in all sorts of areas of their business, actually, when they're just having that chance to talk that through. It's nice here, Sarah Piddington was saying how much you've supported her. Yeah, so people are enjoying this very much. Thank you very much. I'm just noticing I just want to let you know that I am seeing you. Jane Thomas, Dean Vale, thank you very much. Matt Thompson, Sarah Piddington, Carolyn, Melanie Atwater, thank you very much for joining in here. We're really appreciating it. So we're coming to a close now, and let me just ask. So we want people to get in touch with you, and I get the impression you work in quite a collaborative way, because as Carolyn, with what she does as a sort of interim CEO for companies, she'll be looking for people like you. So anybody wants to get in touch with Gareth, whether it's to work with him on projects, we've got a member who just creates names for companies, which is really interesting, florists, so all these people, you must have to have this sort of ecosystem of people around you to Gareth. So it's a lovely collaborative sector, isn't it? So Gareth is Gareth, anybody who's not watching this, you won't be able to see his name on it, Gareth Martindale. So it's Martin Dale, Dale. You can get in touch with Gareth on LinkedIn, and the business is Sherbet Lemon. So what's the actual URL?
So funnily enough, we're depending when this will go out. So if you're watching it this week, it's sherbetlemonuk.com, and then as of next week, it'll be sherbetlemon.com.
Oh, so you've been able to get the .com. Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. Yes, oh, that's great. It's been fantastic. I don't know whether there's anything we didn't cover really here, but I've gained so much from it, and I know often people contact us and say, this guy sounds like he runs a really big agency. Would my business be big enough? And I always think it's just, you love starting a journey with people as well, don't you? When they're just starting out in a tech or business or whatever they're doing.
Our clients really do range from one-person startups right through to corporate. And and everything in between. But working with someone who is passionate about what they're doing, and you almost, as you're speaking to me, they're coming out with coming up with all these ideas of what they want to do and where they want the business to go, and you start painting a picture in your head of how their brand will eventually end up and where they'll be. We love working with clients like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, one person startups right through to larger organizations.
And you've been on some amazing journeys watching people grow and scale, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. We've seen, people who have started, like a little cake business out of their kitchen, and then they've gone on to like selling Marks and Spencers and all sorts. So it really is nice to sort of see that journey. I mean, we didn't touch on it before, but in between working in agencies and working and starting Sherbet Lemon, I had several years in teaching and education in university, and just watching their journey over a short period of time was something I really enjoyed, and certainly tried to carry that on working with clients.
That is full circle, because we started the show listening to how that random person came into as a supply teacher in your art lesson and inspired you to do graphic design. Can you imagine now you did that yourself into young people? I wonder some of those you'll have changed some of their lives as well as I really believe so strongly in brand. And I can't thank you enough for what you did for us when we were just starting out building this business's personal idea. So that's been a great chat, hasn't it, Thomas?
Beautiful. Gareth, you've left me with painting a picture in your head. That is what that teacher, that stand-in did for you when you were 12, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you now do for all your clients.
I'll put that on the new website. Live next week.
I just think it's very easy to underestimate how important it is to have a brand that you're proud of and that in itself tells a story, because it is just a building block, isn't it? That's the foundation, and it can have such an impact on your business going forward. And it's like having the best car on your drive. You feel so constantly proud of it.
Yeah.
And
it really, so we've spoken to clients who have they feel they've gained confidence in themselves and their business, and even ones that print out the brand guidelines and stick them on the wall just so they can keep referring back to and treat it like, it's like their little Bible. But if you get the initial strategy right, it's something that you can constantly go back to, and it's that confirmation that you are on the right path.
Yeah. Beautiful ending, beautiful way to end. Thank you so much for your time, Gareth. Thank you to everybody that watched this live. And if you've been listening to this, walking your dog or in the car, thank you to you as well. I hope we've inspired you to think maybe a bit more deeply about your brand, how important it is to your future success, and how proud you would be if you had a brand that represented your values and your vision. So thank you everyone for that. And thank you, Gareth, for being so inspiring.
Thanks, Gareth.
Bye, everyone.